So, Dr. Presidio, you just said all the priorities our schools are juggling, and if everything is a priority, then nothing is. And something that I wonder about with staff regularly is how the Portrait of a Graduate combines and weaves with any number of projects and curricula and coursework, whether it's International Baccalaureate, World Language. I was over at Edison Academy this week, and it was the STEM global classroom. It sounds amazing. But even I am trying to figure out, well, how do you navigate that, as a parent, trying to figure out if their student wants this. As a student, I asked the student, well, how do you kind of see all this fitting in? And as a teacher who's got to do the training and the planning. And I just do want to, harken back to something even one of our public speakers said. We have to make sure we're giving everyone that really strong foundation. And so I'm really eager with the strategic plan process to figure out how does the Portrait of a Graduate fit into all that, and what is really giving us the best investment for our students, and are we going to let other things go to the side that have sunset? Because it seems like there's a lot, and we know there's a lot on our teachers, and I just worry that we just keep adding, and where's it all going to get braided? So that's my reflection on this very cool graphic. Thank you. Thank you. I agree, if you're not in school, you're missing out, and I was just listening to our speaker talk about, our staff member, Ms. Harada, talk about time for teacher work days. And I must mention that our school calendar this year has been a challenge in terms of providing the work days, providing the learning days for our students, while we're trying to provide more work days for our teachers. And I mention it now because if we're going to talk about the days we need for instruction, I will own that, we did a very public calendar process, and we put a lot of criteria out there, and it didn't quite work out the way that I think some of us had hoped. And I did not chuckle when our student representative said, this is the first 5-day week of school we've had. As a parent, it's been, I'm haggard about it, and I'm concerned that we're not going to talk about that soon in this board. I thought it was January. I'm hearing it might be later. Prince William's already got their draft out. I think that we can't talk about academic success if we're not going to approve a calendar as soon as we can. I also, I'm kind of finding it hard to get excited about data that's talking about 2 years ago when the whole world was different, and I understand the exercise in doing it, and there's some relevance today, but there's nothing in there about the street data that I know our staff has done book clubs and professional development on, all that data that doesn't come out in those standardized tests of language arts and math. And Dr. Reed, you've talked about no longer reducing our students to those standardized tests of No Child Left Behind. And so what can we extract from this that's helpful? But then let's move forward and find the data that really matters so we can really talk about the gaps from race, the gaps from inequity, and whether that's, again, race or learning disabilities or different abilities. Dr. Reed, I think of things you say about, we can't plan for the past. Let's plan for the future. And it's much brighter and more vibrant than I think the data from a few years ago are showing us tonight. Yeah, as a member of the governance committee, I'm really excited that we're approving this and another policy tonight. Governance and policy might seem kind of dull to some people, but I love this stuff. So, and this one is part of a whole slew of policies that are being reviewed now by our Facilities and Transportation Department. And what is happening is we're trying to go through, and this was one of the ones that just needed some minor tweaks, and the governance committee met in a public meeting and worked with our assistant superintendent to figure it out. Then there's another set that's coming that needs a little bit more investigation. And then there's maybe 3 or 4 that are going to really integrate the work that has been so incredible that's happened in the last few years in FCPS and the county. So the Joint Environmental Task Force, the JETS work, our FCPS Get to Green work, the Capital Improvement Program, the CIP. And so our acting assistant superintendent is going to be updating those policies in tandem as we go through the CIP process. So this is just one of those steps, and it is so critical for the board to do this policy review. We have a little over 215 policies, and it is our responsibility to review those every 5 years. And so it is again, that is governance, and so I'm really eager to keep approving these and figure out also stronger ways for our board to make sure that we are staying on that 5-year cycle and retiring and sunsetting policies that we don't need. That is, our policy is the board's statement of values that the superintendent can then put into action. So just a little background, and stay tuned for more policy action. This is when I can appreciate the comment that, you know, we need to continue to communicate this work to the public, and this policy is about removing some challenges for parents that really aren't necessary anymore. Sometimes this policy work is about administratively just, you know, updating some language, but sometimes there are real updates that reflect what families are going through at this time. And, you know, I, as a parent, have spent the last few weeks with my middle schooler trying to navigate Schoology, and, you know, even yesterday we tried to email a teacher and we went to 3 different places to figure out how to email that teacher. So there's, whether it's a form or a system, like, we have to figure out how to make it work better for our families, because there's just so much, even, you know, if you're in great circumstances, it's still just a challenge. You know, it's tough in this day and age. So I'm glad that we're doing what we can through policy, and then however we can continue to do it through practice to make parents the true partners that they need to be. Yeah, I appreciate Ms. Omesh taking this off the consent agenda to discuss this, and I think this is another nice opportunity to really have discussions about these really central topics that I don't feel like we get to talk to you about that much. I mean, regarding the AAP program, I mean, I have to offer a different perspective, which is that our current model is separating kids. I mean, any student should be able to go to their community school and get what they need. And it can decimate communities. I've seen it in my own children, and then we have other communities where kids aren't even coming from the schools at all and going to AAP centers. I think, you know, regarding giftedness, I've heard this mentioned. Can we look at giftedness as a special education need? That students who are truly gifted, they need specialized education. And then there's advanced academics, and let's talk about that too. But right now, some schools, the principal can use a budget to hire an AART, an advanced academic resource teacher, while other schools, the principal has to use that money for something different. Where's the equity in that? You know, I think we're separating kids at 2nd grade. You know, so I think that we have to check this box for the state right now, but this board could do more to schedule more conversations about this real stuff that really impacts our schools, and I'd love to do that sooner rather than later.
Ms. Meren?
Yeah, this morning I was getting ready to go to this really great workforce development event, but first I checked the news and social media and saw just another shooting, and I will not be desensitized to it, and I hope that none of our members of the public are. And actually this weekend, it occurred to me, let me just list the things that our public schools do to mitigate gun violence. We have locked entries. We've committed $5 million to add more vestibules. Policy banning guns on campuses and buildings, signage and trainage on enforcement, lockdown drills that terrorize our students, plans made up and kept up on what to do if there's an intruder, staff training on how to enforce those plans, how to communicate it to parents, asking parents annually to lock up their guns and safely secure firearms, and making lesson plans to teach students how to have gun violence prevention. This is what our children and our adults do in our school system, and I ask what our state lawmakers are doing to toe their end of the line. We can't meet our educational mission here in higher ed if we continue to allow our students and adults to be murdered like this. I did go on, was a little late after I tried to collect my composure, to an amazing event in the district. It featured a signing of an apprenticeship program agreement with the Virginia Department of Labor through a longtime partner with FCPS, Virginia Tire and Auto. And what they're doing is trying to fill the workforce needs that they see. And it's like, what I loved about this event is that I learned about how exciting automotive technology is. It's not like it was back in the day when I tried to learn how to change the oil in my old car, but like, it is STEM, it's science, it's math, it's customer service. I mean, and this also bridged to to the visit I did last week to our Edison High School Academy, which is kind of like the flagship, I think, of some of our academy work, where we had veterinary technician, our only HVAC program, which we need to do more for access to that. But all of these jobs and such articulate tour guides who are our students talking about these jobs and being passionate. And so I see just a lot of potential and energy building around our strategic plan and our career and workforce readiness work, and just really re-educating anew our students and our families about what lies beyond high school. Some things that they might know of and some things that are new, like some of these really exciting career offerings and certification programs that we have in FCPS. So I also caught a play, Madison High School's Much Ado About Nothing. I actually brought my 4th grader and was not sure how that was going to go, and he loved it. Laughing, and it was really fun because I got to see students I had seen at a previous production, like now in their next production. So it's really cool to see how they evolve in their work and the sets. Everything was just great, and I'm headed to South Lakes Peter the Stargazer this Saturday. We stopped in at some point at the Louise Archer Sock Hop, my son and I. He had way too many root beer floats, but that's an annual tradition. So I'm gonna head down to Williamsburg with my colleagues here for VSBA, the state school board meeting, and the days are very full.